Hello all, welcome back. Got a little bit of a different setup going on. My typical setup is disassembled at the moment as I am going to be getting some new carpet put in. So I'm in a new area, new place, new squishy background here. Today I'm actually going to be covering some knife maintenance tools. It was a request from a comment, and I thought it was a great idea, taking a little bit of a break from knives themselves and talk about somehow how I maintain some of my knives, sharpen them, lube them, do all that jazz. So I've got a couple of kits that I basically focus on. I've got this zipper pouch, which has a ton of stuff in it, and then I've got this, which is one of my few sharpening options here. First, we can go over what's in this kit because it has a lot contained in here. First thing, all the bits you'd need for pivots, torques, everything you would need for pivots. It's a cheap little one. I think I got it from Lowe's or something. So this is actually a puck stone, a Lansky puck. I use this for rough sharpening of like axes, and I've used it for my lawnmower. It's okay. It's a nice portable size. Here is my sharpening rouge for my leather strop, which isn't with me. I do have a one of them, but I actually have a 18-inch long leather strop that I've made out of an old belt. That's in the kitchen, so I do not have that on hand. Just an old kind of cotton t-shirt to use for wiping stuff. I've got some polish. That's pretty secure. This is a soft white polish that I use just for buffing if I really want to get a nice shine on it. I have a jeweler's loupe if I really want to look real close into the edge of a knife blade. And there goes. Basically, you can look real close on the edge of something so I can see if there's damage. Got another little cloth. I have a glove, but that's just a byproduct. Got some Loctite. I think everybody needs some Loctite for their stuff. This is an interesting one. So I've got 3-in-1 oil in this syringe. It just helps me get into knife pivots without having to necessarily remove. And I'll talk about my general cleaning policy and all that because I've got some tips and tricks. Got a Torx 6 because the one from the kit stripped out. This is really soft steel, so I ended up having to buy a dedicated one. Here are two of my other sharpening stones. These are DMT or kind of sharpening, diamond sharpening stones, I guess. I have them labeled with Sharpie, so that's extra fine, that's extra fine. I've got coarse and fine. So those are in my kit. These are actually pretty portable as well. I use these a lot. I've had them for many years. I've had good luck with these. In this kit, this is a Lansky. This is an old Lansky sharpening kit. So what comes in this kit is you've got a couple of different stones. If you're familiar with Lansky, you've got a couple of different stones. This is a guided sharpener. This is before all the fancy sharpeners came out. But basically what you do is you take this rod, put that rod in here. So now you've got it on a stick. You then clamp your knife in here and you put it at the angle that you want. So this has pre-listed angles here. So typically for outdoors knives, I would do 20. For kitchen knives, I do 17. And you basically just guide your blade. It actually should go the other way, like this. So then once it's clamped in here, sorry for the noise, you basically just guide. That way it's a consistent angle. I like this. This is really good for, you know, 3 or 2 to maybe 6-inch blades, but if you start getting longer blades like machetes and stuff, it's tough. And you've got coarse, medium, and then extra fine here, or fine. It's like a 600 grit, I think. Yeah, you may be able to see that. So this is a 600, it's real smooth. And you've got the ceramic for serrations. So this is a good enough kit. I mean, I've used this for a long time. It's not so good with new steels like S30V. Older steels, 440s, 440C, 420HC, 8CR, those kind of lower end steels, this does a really great job, especially if you have to reprofile them. But the new steels like S30V, M4, like all those new hard steels, that kit struggles. It takes forever to get a good edge on them. And then the last tool is probably my favorite. It is the WorkSharp Pocket Guide. Got coarse and fine, and you've got a ceramic rod, big and little, and then this ceramic rod turns with different grooves and stuff in it, so you can sharpen different things, fish hooks, coarse, all that stuff. And then on the back side, you've got a strop. So see that green stuff? That's what this is. I have an entire block of this stuff, which you put on leather strops as a final honing of your edge. It's just a piece of leather here with the rouge on it. The cool thing about this is it has guides, so you can kind of gauge what your 20-degree angle would be for typical outdoors use. Like I said, I usually use about a 20-degree angle for all my outdoors knives, pocket knives, and then for kitchen knives, I'll go between 15 and 17, just to make it a little sharper because I'm not doing anything super heavy duty with that. So in terms of process, I used to be an advocate of completely disassembling my knives. Thank you, Nick Shabazz. However, recently, in the past probably 3 years or so, I stopped doing that, especially for folding knives. I found out there is a much faster, um, easier, and safer way of doing it, I guess. If you love to do it, by all means do it, but I don't think it's necessary. I've cut drywall and all kinds of really gross stuff with my pocket knives, and I have found a good way of being able to do this. So what I typically do is, and bear with me here, I may, depending on how dirty it is, I may actually run my whole knife underwater. Run it underwater, get all the big debris out. Then I take my air compressor and I blow the knife out. Believe it or not, this blowing it out will not only dry it, but it'll get rid of 90% of the gunk that is in that pivot. And then with this, you can reach in there without having to disassemble the pivot, and you drop a couple of drops of lubricant in there. I use this, or I use frog lube that I typically use for my firearms as well. I'll drop that into the pivot, actuate it a few times, and boom, good as new. The only time I disassemble now is if I start to see corrosion or rust. But for general purpose, I would do what I would call a field strip, or field cleaning of it, because 99% of the time that is more than sufficient to bring it back up in basically new. I was shocked to compare the two of taking it apart, lubing everything, wiping it all down, versus just blowing it out with the air compressor. Um, in some cases, it even worked better with hair and stuff, because hair, once it gets caught in that oil after you take it apart, it's a pain. If you do it with the air compressor, it blows everything out, including oil. So do it before you oil it, otherwise you'll lose your oil. And then if you need to do some additional corrosion resistance, let's say on liners, you can always take a Q-tip with some frog lube or oil and go in between the scales and kind of rub in there with some additional application. But that's the best way I found to do it. I basically only sharpen my knives every few months. I use my knives a lot, but I tend to be fairly careful with most of my knives. I do have one knife that I have basically dedicated to construction and abuse, and it is this old hickory knife. I do have a new version of this. If you've watched my shorts, you've probably seen me remove this hump on the top of it. But this is an old Ontario knife, old hickory, and I basically dedicate this to whatever I need to cut slash abuse. This stays on a magnet on my wall in my garage, and I cut cardboard, I cut drywall, I score wood, I might scratch metal, I might chop electrical wires that are not hooked up, all kinds of stuff I will use this for. I mean, I abuse this thing, and I follow the exact same process for every other knife. When it comes to knife sharpening, I am all about the shadow. So here I'm laying the knife flat, right? If I was going to sharpen this, I'd bring it up until that shadow is gone. There's no more shadow, and that's how I know that I'm at the proper angle. You see the shadow under the blade there? And then you bring it up until that shadow is gone. That's how you know you're at the proper angle. Then you drag that across slowly, consistently, all the way across. You do the same for the other side. You can kind of see that shadow. You'll lift it, lift it, lift it. Now the shadow is completely gone, and that's how you know you're at the right angle. You come across nice and slow, right? You do that on the coarse. If it's real rough, then you go to this fine, and it is magnetic too, so it helps hold your blade in. And then once you're done with that, you always go backstroke on strops. You never want to cut in like you do on metal because you'll destroy the leather. Backstrokes on that. Do it 10 times each side. And then after 10 times, I like to just alternate. You don't got to push too hard, but what that does is it'll essentially bring those burrs that you make when you sharpen up into a fine point. And that's what you're looking for. This method takes maybe 10-15 minutes depending on the damage, but I used to overthink sharpening knives. I've tried sandpaper approach, which ruined edges. It put a convex edge on it, a nice convex edge on it, but I think it ruined it. I do also have some Japanese stones, but I don't use those anymore. I use these, and that's what I'd recommend to anybody. These are perfect. And then with a leather strop, I have gotten every steel under the sun that I own in my pocket knives and fixed blade knives sharp as hell with just this setup. Don't overthink it. It's not rocket science. Those $300 sharpening systems, honestly, unless you love doing it, don't waste your money. Do not waste your money. Or you get it as a gift and you love sharpening knives, or you're doing it as a business. You don't need to get those things. Just learn how to do it by hand with that angle. It's not difficult. There is some challenge when it starts to get into convex or recurves. You might have some challenges there, but with this tool, recurves are easy because all you got to do is bring it across on this ceramic rod, and that's how you sharpen recurves. Serrations. This little one here, good with serrations. These guys don't have that ability. You're going to have trouble with recurves and serrations, but with this one tool, you can do everything. I've used it on machete length 18-inch blades. I've used it on 3-inch blades, 2-inch blades. This thing works great. If I were to recommend one sharpening tool, this is it. The other cool thing is these are replaceable and removable, and they have instructions and details on the inside, which is just phenomenal. I think WorkSharp has done a fantastic job on this one specifically. I do have their plug-in sander version, their belt sander version, but I stopped using it as well. And I don't necessarily want to show it here because this is a all-in-one. This is a one and done type situation. I've got a lot of different ways of doing it. I have had fun with all those other ways. I enjoy sharpening knives, so sometimes I'll make my life a little bit more difficult and use a proper Japanese whetstone. But for the day-to-day hard use, average guy, for 20 bucks, hair popping sharp on almost every knife you own. Love this thing. So that's it, guys. It really comes down to that. I have tons of options, tons of fun stuff. I've played, I've tinkered, I've tried different approaches, but ultimately, quick and easy and effective is what you need to go for. And I just keep it all in this bag, this pouch, And whenever I need it, I grab the whole pouch, I bring it out, and I go on. So let me know if you have any questions, or let me know if you've had good experiences or even bad experiences with this. I've had this one for a while and I've never had an issue, but I am, again, I'm pretty good on my sharpening tools because I want them to last. But if you've had any good or bad reviews or experiences with this or Work Sharp in general, let me know. I'm curious. Or if you have other pocket sharpeners that you really like, because I would consider these pocket sharpeners as well. And between these two, you can get most knives extremely sharp. Um, so these would be separate sets, but I've carried these ones for years when I travel and stuff, and then recently started using this one, but I've had it for a while. So yeah, let me know, guys. If you like this type of stuff, feel free to subscribe. I just passed 400 subscribers, which is mind blowing to me. Um, I would eventually like to get monetized here, just to help get some of this other extra stuff. You guys recommend a lot of really great stuff, but some of that great stuff comes at a cost, and I'm not always able to pick them up on my own. So anything you guys do, any anything in terms of subscribing and all that helps me significantly bring you guys some interesting content. So yeah, hopefully you guys hang around for another one, and I'll see you in the next one.